the New York Mets. I love what the Mets have done this offseason. And what the Mets have done this offseason is really make themselves even more relevant than we ever thought they could. And it wasn't the big contracts and the money that he overspent, Steve Cohen, with these old pitchers, these senior citizen pitchers like Max Scherzer last year and now Justin Verlander, two buddies that played in Detroit.
If the Mets win the World Series, he might as well just buy the Museum of Natural History.
Or Jacob deGrom going to Texas and losing with the Texas Rangers, losing their face of their organization for the last 7 years. And then after the Giants decided to walk away from a contract they offered Carlos Correa, the New York Mets scooped right in and offered Carlos Correa a 12-year, $315 million contract without actually looking at his background when it comes to injuries. And that was the problem with the Giants as well. They really didn't think the plate in his ankle was that bad. When you look at Carlos Correa right now is trying to figure out how he can elevate his years and elevate the money that he's probably going to lose because of this injury. And Uncle Stevie, who doesn't really care about spending money, spent about $1.5 billion in the last 2.5 years. So money is no object to this man. But to offer Carlos Correa, who I believe is one of the best clutch players in the playoffs we have seen since Carlos Beltran, a contract and not really know if he was 100% healthy is mind-boggling. I understand Uncle Stevie. Uncle Stevie is a businessman. If Carlos Correa could prove that he could play 70% of the first 5 years for the New York Mets and make sure that he plays in the majority of the playoff games, no matter if it's 8 years or 9 years, you guarantee the money after that. Because in 5 years, it's the prime of his career, and it's the best chance the Mets can win a World Series. And what does Steve Cohen want to do? He wants to win a World Series.
And if he wants to win a World Series in his window, you got 3 years to go.
You offer him that deal. I'll give you an 8-year deal worth about $230 million. If you play 70% of your 5 years games and make sure that you play in the majority of the playoff games, I will give you all the rest of that money, no matter if you're hurt or if you're 100% healthy.
So your 70% way of thinking would be 112 games a year he has to play for the 5 years.
Yes. If he plays 112 games, the last couple of years he's played over 130. So if he could play 112 in 5 years and be a big part of their offense in the playoffs, I give him an 8-year deal. You have to have stipulations in that contract to those 5 years. And if he could stay healthy and help the Mets win, I don't think the 4 years left of his contract, he's not going to play more than 80 or 90 games. I don't think it'll hurt or even burn a hole in Steve Cohen's pocket.
Yeah, I think the stipulations were something that was intriguing last week, too. And it seems like Carlos Correa is fine with a lot of them. And obviously the Mets, who brought them on, are going to encourage that kind of thing. The one that's been a little bullish to do that is Scott Boras, and pushing for the 12-year deal. He wants all his clients to be rich forever and make a lot of money, like Bryce Harper, for double-digit years within their contracts. So hence why they were pushing for the Mets to be able to give the 12 years $315. So is Carlos Correa really the one that said, all right, I'm not taking less years, or was it Scott Boras? Was it Carlos Correa having the incentive to have the Mets be the focal point of driving other teams' values up? Or was it somebody like Scott Boras too? Because it seems like Carlos Correa does want to be a Met. You either give him the extra average annual value, push it to a $30 million per year contract if they do an 8-year deal. Because you look at what Dansby Swanson got, 7 years, 177. Correa should make more than that in terms of average annual value of his 27. So initially, you would think that Carlos Correa is going to push for 30. We'll see if the Mets come down on that. But I definitely think it's no more than 8 years based on all these injuries, because his injury history is very similar to Aaron Judge's. He's been healthy the last couple of years, but in the middle of his career, he's had a lot of years where he's been missing games, 4 years in a row.
It's really interesting on what the Mets are going to offer Carlos Correa, and if they offer it to him, because the Twins are in it now, maybe a surprise team. Scott Boras loves those surprise teams. I don't think it's going to be the Yankees. Hal Steinbrenner and Steve Cohen are very good friends. They're not going to smack each other in the back of the head if they're fighting for a player.
Plus, nobody would think of the Yankees as a surprise team for anything.
I don't think the Yankees have any interest in Carlos Correa. I think they're more interested in Manny Machado in the offseason next year when Josh Donaldson was off their roster. I know this Carlos Correa thing is going to be the talk for the next 5 days until this gets settled. It will be settled by the end of next week. I think this will be settled a lot quicker than people think. It's really just trying to negotiate the contract and how the stipulations in the contract will work. I think the Mets will get him. I can't see the Twins scooping him up, giving him a 10-year, $245 million contract.
There's no way Steve Cohen will ever be scared of the Twins.
I don't think the Twins would be scared of themselves either. The only team that the Twins are afraid of is the Yankees. Every time they play the Yankees in the playoffs,